Good evening, everyone. Actually, good morning to some of you, good afternoon to some of you. We're delighted that you're here. My name is Helise Lieberman, and I'm the director of the Taube Center for the Renewal of Jewish Life in Poland. And our flagship program, Taube Jewish Heritage Tours. Many of you have traveled with us or had planned to travel with us this year, but couldn't. So we've decided to bring our home to you, to introduce you to our first TJHT talks. And we're delighted that you're able to join us from all parts of the world, especially amidst the daily challenges of sheltering at home, taking care of yourselves, taking care of others, and preparing for what will be a very unique Passover. My favorite part of Passover is to rediscover its meaning, its themes, and its lessons. And sometimes when I finally sit at the table, I think, oh my God, we have to read this Haggadah again. And some of my guests will ask, what time is dinner? But really, the idea is to really rediscover the Haggadah and all of the different layers. And it's a pleasure to be able to sit down and to do some learning. My least favorite part, and I share this with you in all honesty from my living room, is the cleaning. Though I have to admit that given what's going on in our world, it has taken on much different significance. So today we have the honor of speaking with Rabbi Michael Schudrich, the Chief Rabbi of Poland, and the chair of the Taube Center, and equally important, a dear friend and colleague. Rabbi Schudrich, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever you prefer. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you.
So, thank you. Rabbi Schudrich, there are so many themes of Passover. Freedom, redemption, justice, compassion, engagement. And as the director of the Taube Jewish Heritage Tour program, I am particularly taken with the concept and the importance of the journey itself. However, keeping in tradition with the Passover Seder, we have prepared 4 questions for you, which we will pose in the first 30 minutes of our session. And then we will have 15 minutes to take questions or suggestions or comments from our guest participants, which you guests may upload using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and I will share them with Rabbi Schudrich. Please understand that we might not be able to get to all of them, and if we don't, we will be happy to share some of those answers through our newsletter or our personal email, or even perhaps in our next TJHT talk session. Rabbi Schudrich, you and I have had the honor and pleasure of contributing to and being part of an extraordinary and unexpected phenomenon, the revival of Jewish life in Poland. We've been working together for almost 30 years. And I still remember some of those first Seders.
Since you were 5 years old.
Thank you. And I remember those first Seders. And I remember the first Seder that I ran as the founding director of the Lauder Marashad Jewish Day School. I remember calling you every 5 minutes with questions about where to get everything from matzah to how much horseradish that we needed. But I remember that feeling when 90 people, children, parents, and grandparents crammed into our largest space. And I realized then and even now what a miracle it was, because for some of them, that was the first Seder they had ever participated in. So, are we ready to start our 4 questions?
Ready when you are.
So, why?
Since the 4 questions, I already had my first glass of wine.
Excellent. All right. We'll pace yourself. Okay. So why are this year's Seders different from previous Seders that you've led or organized since coming to Poland in 1990? And if not for the virus and the circumstances in which we all find ourselves, how would have Seders throughout Poland have looked this year?
Okay, well, when I first started here 30 years ago, 1990, it was about importing all the food
I
for
remember.
Passover. And not only all the food, but we even it was even about bringing in frozen kosher for Passover food from London, from Hermolis. That was quite tasty, quite good, and then distributing it all over the country. Did that. I was at that point. I was working for the Ronald Slaughter Foundation, and we ran Seders. I don't remember then, about 4 or 5 different cities right away. But it was really about me doing it, you doing it, bringing in other people from abroad to do it, because almost nobody was left here in Poland that knew how to run a Seder. And then over the years, it has changed. So already a few years ago already, from Warsaw, we would send some of our young people to other communities that are smaller, and they would run the Seder there, no longer bringing people in from abroad, but now using our own young people to help run Seders throughout the country. How would have it looked this year? We would have had Seders in about 12 different communities, reaching way over 1,000 people. Each community doing the best that they could do. And now instead, everybody's home, just like every other Jewish community in the world. And it's a challenge, because I realize now that we've empowered people by connecting them to Passover. But on the other hand, they never had to lead a Seder themselves. As by the way, many of us in the United States never had to lead a Seder either. We always went to my parents, then we went to the in-laws, then so there are a lot of other people that never led a Seder. Been to a Seder 30, 40 times and never led it. A lot of people out there who, as we say, religiously go to a Passover Seder, never led it. But now, with, people at home, 1, 2, maybe 3 people, everybody's got to lead their own Seder. So it's very different. And it's also a tremendous opportunity. Tremendous opportunity to empower people, to let people know that they can do it. It's not the way we wanted it. It's not the way we planned it, but it's the way it is. And now we're going to take that situation and make it into an opportunity, a learning opportunity, an empowering opportunity to let people be able to lead their own Seders.
Thank you. I remember when we first started, there were Seders in Wrocław and Lodz, Łódź, and Krakow and Warsaw. So what are the other communities that have now been able to join in and are ready to host their own families in different parts of Poland?
Okay. Gdańsk, Szczecin, Lublin, Bielsko-Biała, Katowice, Legnica, even Częstochowa. I always miss one of them, but I think I got all of them.
Very nice. Thank you. So let's go to number 2. By the way, did you notice that I already hid the afikomen, because we're not finishing this Zoom session until you find it, okay?
If you say so, it may be a long night.
Well, we can't keep our guests too long. So the second question, Rabbi Schudrich, immediately after Purim, the Polish government was the first in the European Union to institute mandatory closings and the shelter-at-home policy. What programs have the Polish Jewish community offered to its members and community members who would have, of course, as you had said before, had Seder with family, had Seder with friends? And in particular, I'm thinking of those who are still quite numerous, those people who are still finding out that they have Jewish roots, that they are very curious and inclined to find out more about their own roots and who they might be, and would have naturally joined one of the many communal Seders that would have been offered.
I'd really put it into 3 categories. Okay. 2 have to do with Passover, 1 just all the time. So the first concern is that we have to make sure that the elderly are eating, and so therefore we are sending food home. to elderly every day, not only on Passover, but really already as soon as the shelter at home began. And actually, we had it before because there were people that are no longer mobile were receiving food. So we simply just upped the number for those who otherwise would have been able to come out. And now they need to stay home. So we now increase it. We're sending it home. It's not only here. It's in Wrocław. It's in Łódź. It's in Krakow. And so that's number one. Taking care of the physical needs of the elderly, making sure they have medicine, but also make sure that, calling them literally every day and saying, what's up, what's happening? Many of them do not have children here in Poland. They're alone. Some of them don't have any children at all. And so it's about making sure that they feel that they're not alone, that they feel connected. It's very nice sheltering at home. It really means we're isolating. We don't want to use that word. And we shouldn't use that word, but we're isolating. And therefore, the role of the community is to make sure that people only feel the physical isolation. They don't feel any kind of spiritual, psychological isolation. So that's number one. The other thing we're doing is that we're making sure that people physically have what they need for Passover. So we've instituted what we're calling a Seder in a box. Seder in a box comes in a box. That's why it's called Seder in a box. And you get shmura matzah, you get a bottle of wine, a bottle of grape juice, a Haggadah, the whole Seder plate already made up with all the different things that you need on the Seder plate, the charoset, the maror, etc. Instructions, basic instructions on how to lead a Seder. And that's being sent to anyone in Warsaw that wants the box. It's been heavily subsidized by the community. And we're sending out about 140 of them tomorrow, all over the Warsaw area. Other communities are doing the same thing. We were able to, because we saw this happening already 2 weeks ago, we were able to organize it and then also be an example for other smaller communities. This is what you can do. In addition, for those that are concerned, we're also preparing, you also can purchase from the community kosher for Passover meals. So you can get your Seder in a box and 4 portions or 8 portions, however portions you want for 2 days, for 3 days, whatever. And we'll be continuing to do this throughout Passover. So whoever wants kosher for Passover food, ready-made, will be able to get that. In addition, which we do every year, we've actually set up a system where we work with a kosher store in Antwerp, where people simply order online as if they were sitting in Antwerp. They order online. We have an agreement with the store that they ship for free to Poland because our order is large enough. And therefore, people just come and pick up the food from the synagogue and they have their whole Passover order. So now pick up from the synagogue. That's what's different this year. So there are some who are young and healthy who are permitted and they go out, and therefore we put the box. What we're doing is that for security reasons from way before, nothing to do with coronavirus, we have a double door system like they have in many Israeli embassies, where you enter one, the door closes, then they open the next door. When someone comes, they stay outside. We put it in the kind of the middle room. We leave and they come pick it up, so there's no contact between people. Trying to be sensitive. We do not want one more person to have any risk of getting sick. And the last thing, the third element, the third leg of all of this is education. So, for example, last Thursday I led a model Seder on Zoom for way over 50 people. I was very impressed. Over 2 hours, still 50 people with us. And that was then posted on Facebook. And so even more people have seen it. But not only just a one-time thing, all of our classes, all of our normal lectures have now been moved to Zoom. And many of the lectures in a natural way would have been about Passover anyway. In addition, because we had to close the synagogue, I decided to close the synagogue a week ago, which was later than almost every other synagogue in Europe. But I said that we need to do that. All of the prayers except for Shabbat, morning, afternoon, evening, all on Facebook Live. For example, also Friday afternoon before Shabbat, we did a Kabbalat Shabbat on Facebook Live. I did Havdalah. What's it now? You really lose track of time. 2 days ago, Motzei Shabbat after Shabbat was over, where I don't get why, but there were over 1,000 views of my Havdalah.
Wow, very
I
exciting.
mean, we usually get 20 people in the synagogue. We now got 1,000. No, so.
Fantastic.
But what it's also indicating is that there is a spiritual need. People want to feel in contact. So not only do I do that, but also every day, besides the 3 times a day, the prayers, including the afternoon prayer where we start with extra psalms for those who are ill, and also an extra prayer for all medical staff that are working with the ill to also pray for their well-being and their families' well-being. We're also teaching, as I said, our regular classes are on Zoom. I also have a special class, 15 minutes every afternoon, 5:15, Facebook Live, about different aspects of Passover. And then also I do about once every other day, a 60 to 90 second message, what we call in Hebrew chizuk, to strengthen, to let people know we remember them. I've also done something else, is where I've asked like well-known cultural figures in Poland,
Yes.
Jewish and mostly not Jewish, to send us greetings for Passover. And so every day I post somebody else, both from Poland. Also, I have a few people from abroad. So yesterday was Yurik Ovshak, who was a tremendous social activist. This evening we had somebody else. And at least those are the things I remember right now that we're doing, but I'm sure we're doing other things.
Rabbi Schudrich, thank you. The list is impressive, and you brought something to mind. I had been offered, because I'm a member of the community, Seder in a box. And I thought, well, I am making a Seder this year, and I've made one for many years. And I thought, why should I take the Seder in the box? I mean, and I first made sure that no one would go without. And I didn't want to take one from someone who really needed it. But I decided that maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea. And so I want to thank you for enabling me to do a mitzvah, for thank you in the community. Because
let us do a mitzvah.
Because one of my all-time favorite guests who comes to us every year obviously cannot come to us, but I can bring Pesach to her door. So she will have the Pesach in the box. I will make food. And I really, again, want to thank you and the community for making it possible for us to think even beyond our own doors, not just now, but in the future.
You're welcome. But that's what a community does.
Exactly. And I think the whole understanding of what a kehila is, what a community is, and what all the people who make it up is becoming very clear. And so we appreciate more and more that sense of what we have in our community and what people give and bring to it, and what they're able to share with each person, each according to his or her needs or her interests. So unfortunately, time is rushing, Rabbi Schudrich, and we need to move on to the third question. So there are many, many interpretations or understandings of the 4 children. Maybe they're 4 personalities within ourselves, 4 traits, 4 characteristics, 4 children in people that we know. How would you respond to the 4 children this year? The knowledgeable one, the critical one, let's say, the naive or innocent one, and the one who does not yet know how to ask.
This year, as we've already said many, many times, it's clear, is a unique year. It's a unique Seder. And therefore, as I see it, the answer is the same to all 4 or to all 4 children. And the answer is, we love you. This is a time of uncertainty. It's a time of sheltering at home. As I said before, really means isolation. And we cannot, I do not fully know if I understand the impact on children. And therefore, I think what's incredibly important is that every child needs to know how much we love them, that we may not be with grandma and grandpa, but we are together. That we are together We remain together. The physical distance is painful, but we love you and we're here for you. And I think also certainly the older children understand the threat involved. It's scary, certainly uncertain. It's even scary. And so we have to make sure the children know that we are there for them. We may not have all the answers, but we always have the love for them, and to give them as much security and support as we possibly can.
Thank you. I know that you have an amazing daughter far away. What advice would you give her this year?
Well, I've told Ariana, but she's figured out herself.
No,
First of all, I should say hi, Ariana, because I know you're on. I see that you're one of the participants. Hi. She's going to be angry with me later, but that's okay. I really would like to reiterate 3 things. Stay at home, stay at home, stay at home.
Ari, are you listening?
She always listens.
So as we come to our 4th question, we can breathe a little bit, think about what's ahead. As the chief rabbi and a communal leader, an educator, a spiritual leader, what would you hope that we all here in Poland, around the world, would take forward from the way we're about to experience Passover? And something that you mentioned before was all of the distance learning in place, which is extraordinary. In a sense, I imagine for some people, the distance is almost empowering because they might not have otherwise come forward. So in a sense, we're embracing new people into the community. So how do you imagine that some of these new ways of communicating, of educating, of engaging people might continue to support and encourage the growth of the Polish Jewish community?
Okay. Thank you. So there's nothing good about coronavirus. I don't like the kind of, well, what kind of good can come out? Nothing good comes out of the coronavirus. Whatever good happens is because we make it. Coronavirus is evil and deadly. But there are things that we can learn from it that can make our lives better. So just to repeat, there's nothing good about the coronavirus. There's no sense of blessing that comes, but we have to make we got to make the blessing. So clearly, one of the things that I learned is that on a very practical level, there's something called Facebook Live. And I didn't think anybody was going to watch it. And I just got a phone call like 2 hours ago from someone from the community outside of Warsaw saying, "Thank you so much for what you're doing." Just turning on this, clicking on where it says live and talking, that's pretty easy. And so what we clearly learn is that there are people out there, many people, who want to be in touch. As I said before, that, when we'd get 20 people in the synagogue for Havdalah, now we're getting 1,000 online. Well, how do we reach those other 980? Or as I like to say, okay, so of the 1,000 views, only 300 is probably my mother, but there's still 700 people out there. How can we connect with them? Why? Okay, now it is clearly a stressful time. People most likely feel a greater need, but it's out there. People want to be in contact. And as one of the things I've learned of being in a very unusual situation, but also living in an unusual, unique Jewish community for 30 years, and that is, there's an old saying in Yiddish, it's hard to be a Jew. What I've learned, it's hard to stop being Jewish. It's not only hard to be Jewish, it's hard not to be Jewish. And therefore, Jews want to be Jewish, sometimes in spite of the rabbis, but don't quote me on that. And we need to find ways that we've seen now, we've engaged people. How do we continue to engage? 2 days ago, I'm sorry, it was yesterday already. Not today. Yesterday, I was on
track of those days. We know.
That's right. Blur's Day.
Yes.
Was on emergency Zoom call with the Standing Committee of the Conference of European Rabbis, which means that's the major Orthodox rabbinic group in Europe, which is the major rabbinic group in Europe, discussing all aspects of what's happening now. And I raised the question: what are we going to learn from how we're connecting with people? And many rabbis said, they're on Zoom, they're on Skype, they're on Facebook, and they're connected to many more people than they ever did before. What are we going to learn about it? And so I proposed, let's make a committee now to talk about the day after. From this horrible, horrible situation, what are we going to learn that's going to enrich and make our community stronger and better?
Thank you. So you get the option of the fifth question.
Oh,
what would you like to add before we go to questions?
Okay, well, it's really not a question. It's just a simple statement, and that is to really say thank you to 72 participants who are out there.
Absolutely.
More than ever, it's important that we, the Jewish community of Poland, a small Jewish community, as I like to say, we have moved in 30 years from a dying, stagnant, dysfunctional Jewish community to a reemerging, vibrant, dysfunctional Jewish community. Someone once said, oh, like everybody else. It's so important for us to know that you're out there for us. It's so important to know that you want to connect to us, that you want to hear how we're doing. Now more than ever, we need to know that you're there. And really, this webinar and all the participants really testify to that. And it's an especial thank you to Taube, to Shana Penn, and to everyone on the Taube team that really bringing us even more together than even before.
Thank you, Rabbi Schudrich. So, friends, I see that we already have several questions, and I will share them with Rabbi Schudrich. So some of them are questions and some are comments. So let me see if we can get, the first is a comment from our friend and colleague, Rabbi Harry Pell from Westchester, who says, thank you.
Also the former teacher of Ariana.
Okay, and putting it into context. And he says, thank you to you, Rabbi Schudrich, for all of your work. Thinking of you from White Plains, Chag Sameach, Harry Pell. And several more questions have popped up. Keep them coming. Shana Penn asks, what are you offering children who cannot attend preschool or day school programs?
Mm-hmm. It's not clear. Is that meaning now or in general? So I'll answer both questions. The entire Lord of Marsha school has gone online. I think it's from above the third grade. Mm-hmm. Because those younger are not really capable to learn online yet. What we are doing is that we are sending some materials home to the parents. Mm-hmm. And whatever we're doing, we need to do more. In general, not during the crisis, we do have e-school, where children outside of Warsaw that don't have access to a Jewish day school who have classes online twice a week.
How many students are involved?
Great question. I would guess around 50, but I'm just guessing. I should know the answer. I go to their different events once, twice a year, and usually I see about 50 kids there. So I'd say at least 50.
We know it's an extremely impactful program, and we're very grateful that we have it in Poland. So one question is asked, how can we be helpful with material or financial resources?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. I think that, as I said already, that just by being on this webinar, that we know that you care. In terms of physical things, there are lots of ways that we'll need to have help. We're yet really to assess what everyone else is worried about are people that are out of jobs
Right.
or if not out of a job, then underemployed. We'll need to. That's the best way to do it. Is to be in contact with the Taube Foundation, and contributions and help can be made that way.
Thank you. Right, let's look for a few more questions. We have a shout out from Palo Alto, California, who's wondering, how are you doing a daily minyan via Zoom?
Okay, so as I said, we the rest of Europe basically closed their minyan 3 weeks ago. We did it last week. I kept it open for 2 more weeks because we have a very special situation here, in that we got 10, 12, 13 guys, and some women, to come to the minyan. It's not big. And we also have a very large synagogue. The Moshe synagogue, can hold 500, 700 people. So the distancing, the 6 feet that are required, was very easy to do. And I felt that we could keep going, and that it was spiritually uplifting for the people who came, and for everyone who knew that we were doing it. As a matter of fact, I'd let it be known that we still had a minyan. And people from all over the United States, Canada, Israel, were asking us to say Kaddish, whether they were in the year or for a yurtzeit. So I felt there was a really special meaning. And also, for me to close a synagogue in Warsaw, it was very hard. But what I simply saw was, after 2 weeks, is that people really don't keep 6 feet distance when you know each other. It's just human. It didn't work humanly. And I no longer felt that I could take the risk. So when we moved then to do Zoom, I don't call it a minyan. I call it communal prayer, because I'm a traditionalist. I'm an Orthodox rabbi, and a minyan means you got 10 people in the same place. Zoom doesn't do that. However, anything that enhances a spiritual experience, anything that brings more Judaism to Jews, is a positive thing. And therefore, davening together, and I have to say, because I'm often the one leading the prayer on Facebook Live, and you see all the different people popping up who's watching all over the world.
Right.
That's also tremendously inspiring for me. That's giving me strength. That's giving me chizuk.
Yeah.
And so that's how we're doing it.
So what kind of questions are you getting via Zoom?
Okay, well, I'm really not getting questions via Zoom. I'm getting them more traditional email, Facebook, even something called a telephone. You may have heard of it.
This ancient contraption, yes.
Right. But one practical question is, Wednesday morning we're supposed to burn our chametz. We always burn our chametz. That's part of the preparation for Passover. We're not going to burn our chametz this year. We cannot have people congregating. And it used to be lovely. It's like the last moment to say Chag Sameach to everybody. We have a public, dozens of people coming. It was wonderful. And it's not only here, but all, several other cities in Poland. We're not going to do it because we don't want people coming together. I mean, everything that we have worked for, always bringing Jews together, we're doing the opposite now. That's tough. But that's where we are. And I just read a few minutes ago, before we started, Orthodox Union came out saying, you cannot burn your chametz because you need to destroy the chametz. That's really what the need is, according to tradition. And therefore, you could either throw it out into a public garbage bin, and it's no longer yours, and it's garbage. Or if it's small and you have to crush it up, you could flush it down the toilet. Excuse me for saying it like that, but it's also getting rid of it. And that's one of the practical questions that people have been asking.
Thank you.
But again, I want to emphasize what's so important is that we do nothing to bring people together now. That is incredibly painful. Yes. But anything that brings people together, some would say, well, I just want to come to the synagogue and I want to burn my chametz out the synagogue. And if anybody wants to come join me, I won't advertise, but they can come. And I said, no, wrong. Don't burn it. And which is something that I read on the OU site was, and don't even burn it at home.
Really?
Because there's some people have backyards. said, don't do that, because if something goes wrong, you're going to put further stress on emergency services that should be focused on corona patients, or at least other sick people, not putting out your fire. Don't even try to make a fire at your own home.
Thank you for sharing this very, very wise advice for all of us. I was going to ask you, because I have a balcony here, what one should do, but I clearly hear the appropriate course of action. And you've really given us a lot of insight, not only to the programs, but the very sensitive approach that you're taking, Rabbi Schudrich, in terms of how to deal with individuals, how to deal with the minyan, how to deal with communities. And of course, we're all different and our communities are different. So I really want to thank you. Please do not underestimate the work you've done for 30 years, because part of the strength of this community and in being able to adapt, unfortunately, this community has had to adapt many times, but to adapt in a positive way, people who are coming to say, but I want to celebrate. I want my Seder box. That's really something that we're all grateful to you and the Jewish communities of Poland for allowing us to participate in a year that seems almost impossible. So thank you.
It was a group effort. Everybody did what they could do, and that's how we've gotten as far as we can.
So we have 2 or 3 more questions. One happens to be, what are the Jewish community centers doing? The Jewish Community Center in Warsaw, the Jewish Community Center in Krakow, and I would also add the Hillel in Krakow and Warsaw, who also reach out to hundreds of people.
Okay. Everything is on Zoom. Everything is Zoom, Facebook, JCC Warsaw, JCC Krakow, Hillel Warsaw, Hillel Krakow, several times a week, having either lectures or, for example, Hillel has what they now call hangout time on Zoom. We just meet on Zoom and you schmooze about whatever you want, just you shouldn't feel alone. And sometimes there's just a couple of people, sometimes there are a lot more than that. But we very quickly switched to do everything online. And as that, we're engaging and we're connecting with people.
Well, I think making connections and keeping connections and finding new connections is what we're all about. And we're all about to prepare the last pieces of our Passover Seders, whether we're sitting by ourselves and often alone, but by ourselves. Thank you. Whether we're sitting in a room with someone, we're sitting at our own tables, with Zoom with someone. I wanted to thank everyone who's joined us this evening. It's a pleasure to see some of your names. I haven't been able to see all of them quite yet, but I see people from both Michael, your world, and my world, and our shared world. And this gives me, like you just said previously, this also gives me a real sense of chizuk, of strengthening, that people from disparate parts of the world, disparate parts of our lives have come together. And so I want to wish everyone a sweet Pesach and a very healthy Pesach. May we all leave Egypt and find ourselves on the other side in good health.
Well, I have 30 seconds to add one more thing.
With pleasure.
There's an interesting halakha that says when you have the 4 questions, a child should ask.
Right.
The question is asked, what happens if there's no children? What the traditional response is, well, then the wife asks the husband. And then the halakha asks, what about if you're by yourself? And the halakha says you ask yourself the questions. Now, how could it be that hundreds of years ago that somebody imagined that someone's going to be all by themselves for a Seder? And this almost clairvoyance, almost prophecy, that already within our tradition, we have something that says, yes, there may be a Seder where you're going to be by yourself and you're still going to do it. And you're going to ask the 4 questions to yourself and to know you're never alone. We're connected throughout the world and connected with Jews throughout history. Chag Kasher v'Sameach.
Thank you, Rabbi Schudrich. Thank you, participants, and hope that you'll join us for our future sessions that we will resume after Pesach. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.